Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to decode the exact biological and cognitive levers that are secretly dictating human behavior. We're skipping the basic 101 stuff and jumping straight into the complex, fascinating engines that drive absolutely everything we do.
Have you ever actually stopped and wondered why you might willingly seek out terrifying thrills like, say, jumping out of a perfectly good airplane? Or why you reach for that extra slice of pizza even when your brain knows you are completely 100% full? It's a fascinating contradiction, right? So what is really driving our behavior day in and day out?
Here's our roadmap for today. First, defining the drive. Second, biological needs and hunger. Third, arousal and sensation seeking. Fourth, intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. And finally, navigating motivational conflicts.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, defining the drive.
So, motivation. Formally, it's defined as the internal or external drive that stimulates and directs behavior towards a particular goal. But honestly, it's so much more than just a textbook definition. It's literally the engine behind the sheer level of effort you put into any task. It's the grit and persistence you show when the work gets really tough, and it dictates your overall engagement with the world around you. Your deepest needs, your complex desires, and your ingrained personal beliefs are all interacting constantly, behind the scenes, to fuel this effort and push you toward a specific outcome.
Moving right along to Section 2, biological needs and hunger.
Just like any other animal on the planet, we've got instincts. We're talking about innate, fixed patterns of biological behavior that are absolutely critical for survival. They trigger automatic responses to secure the big things: food, shelter, reproduction, and protection. Think of a newborn infant's rooting reflex. That's an entirely innate biological pattern designed to help them find food immediately. But what really sets us apart as humans is how incredibly fast we evolve from those basic survival tactics into executing highly complex, calculated behaviors. Now, imagine your body as this brilliantly complex system that's just desperately trying to maintain equilibrium. That is the whole essence of the drive reduction theory. When you have a physiological need, let's say a lack of water, your body enters an unbalanced state. This creates a physiological drive, which we consciously experience as thirst. That uncomfortable nagging feeling essentially forces you to engage in a drive-reducing behavior, like, pouring yourself a tall glass of water. Drinking it finally restores your body's balance and equilibrium. It's just a constant biological loop of need and fulfillment.
To really understand a specific, incredibly powerful drive like hunger, we have to take a peek inside the brain at the hypothalamus. Think of it as your body's internal thermostat. It is constantly reacting to two key hormones. On one side, acting as the biological gas pedal, we've got ghrelin, which is produced by the stomach and actively triggers your hunger. On the flip side, acting as the heavy brakes, we have leptin, produced by fat cells, telling your body, hey, we've got enough energy, it is time to stop eating.
But wait a second. If we only eat to survive based on those biological hormones, why in the world do we sometimes keep eating when we know we're already full? Well, it's often because incredibly powerful external factors override those internal brakes. Think about the pretty universal experience of a persistent grandparent insisting you have a third helping of dinner. Refusing that food actually goes against deeply ingrained cultural norms of hospitality and generosity, and that societal pressure can easily override your biological leptin brakes. As you can see, biology is really just the beginning of the story here.
Okay, let's get into Section 3, arousal and sensation seeking. So why do we willingly watch terrifying horror movies or pay good money to ride a roller coaster that makes us feel like we're plummeting out of the sky? Well, arousal theory tells us that humans actually don't want perfect, calm equilibrium all the time. Instead, we're motivated to maintain an optimal level of arousal. We literally have a fundamental, innate drive to actively seek out stimulating experiences just for the excitement of it, and to desperately avoid the agonizing pain of boredom.
This brings us to the Yerkes-Dodson law, which maps out a fascinating bell curve, showing the relationship between this arousal and your actual performance. If your arousal is too low, you're stuck in a state of fatigue and low attention, which obviously causes your performance to drop. But if you get completely overstimulated and your arousal spikes way too high, your performance declines again, but this time it's due to intense anxiety, panic, or stress. In pretty much everything we do, we are always subconsciously chasing that optimal peak right in the middle.
Building off that need for varied experiences, sensation-seeking theory actually groups us into distinct motivational types. Picture a thrill seeker physically scaling a massive, dangerous mountain driven by extreme, daring experiences. Contrast that with an experience seeker who might prefer the novelty of trying bizarre street food in an unfamiliar country. Then you have folks high in disinhibition, who lean heavily towards impulsive, unrestrained behaviors. And finally, those with high boredom susceptibility, meaning they require constant active engagement simply to keep from tuning out altogether.
Next up, Section 4, Intrinsic versus Extrinsic Motivation.
Let's do a quick thought experiment. When you do an activity, are you doing it for the sheer intrinsic joy of the task itself? Is it fueled entirely by your own curiosity and personal interest? If so, that's intrinsic motivation. Or are you executing that behavior to obtain some kind of external validation, like earning a hefty paycheck, getting praise from your boss, or avoiding a punishment? That is extrinsic motivation. Recognizing the true source of your drive, whether it's coming from the inside or the outside, completely changes how you approach your life and your long-term goals.
And finally, Section 5, Navigating Motivational Conflicts. What happens when our goals collide? Things get messy. This dynamic is beautifully explained by the motivational conflicts theory. Proposed by the renowned psychologist Kurt Lewin, this theory defines the very real psychological tension and acute anxiety we feel when we're confronted with multiple goals that actively compete with each other for our time, our energy, and our limited attention.
You literally navigate these exact conflicts every single day. Trying to pick between two incredible vacation spots? That's an approach-approach conflict, two highly desirable outcomes. But what about having to choose between taking a terrible, unfulfilling job or going completely broke? You can feel the mental friction there, right? That's an avoidance scenario. Two very unattractive options. And then consider craving a rich, decadent slice of chocolate cake while simultaneously dreading the calorie intake. That is a classic approach-avoidance conflict, where you are intensely drawn to and yet repelled by the exact same goal.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a challenge. Look closely at your daily choices today. From what you decide to eat for dinner to the career you're pursuing, right down to the thrills you seek on the weekend. Ask yourself, which psychological lever is truly pulling your strings right now? Thank you so much for joining me, and keep exploring the amazing mechanics of your mind.